Happy Sunday, kids! Want to hear a joke? Okay, why is dark spelled with a K and not a C? Because you can't see in the dark.
Hello, Peppa?
Why is Peter Pan always flying? Because he never lands. Get it? He's from Neverland's Island in a cartoon. What did the right lung say to the left lung? We belong together. Well, kids, today we are starting a brand new series called And for the next few Sundays, we are going to check out some really cool stories in the Bible that will help us learn how to something. And for the first week of this series, we are going to learn how to
Now, have you ever done something bad, like steal something, lied about something, or maybe said a really bad thing to someone that hurt their feelings?
We all have done something bad in our lives, and we're not proud of. Have you ever thought that you were too bad to even be forgiven? Maybe you thought God doesn't love you anymore because of all the bad things you've done? Well, guess what? There is no way on earth and in heaven where God will love you less. And yeah, we make mistakes that hurt others and God, but God can turn things around. Now, before we see how, let's check out our What's Up for Today. Now let's check out our Bible story. Today's Bible story is found in the book of Acts chapter 9. It's about a young man named Saul. Saul was a very mean man. Saul was the enemy to a lot of Christians. He traveled from city to city arresting Christians and putting them into prison. He even had some Christians put to death. He was full of anger and hatred for God's people. One day, Saul was traveling down the road towards a city called Damascus when suddenly a bright light shone in front of him. It startled him so much that it knocked him to the ground. A voice began to speak to him from inside the bright light. It said,
Saul, I am Jesus. I am the one you are persecuting. Get up and go to Jerusalem, and I will tell you what to do.
Saul got up, but he realized he was blind. He couldn't see a thing. He had some men help him to Jerusalem, where he met a man named Ananias. God had told Ananias to go find Saul and lay hands on him so that he could be healed. God told Ananias that Saul was to become one of the biggest preachers in the world.
What?
Ananias went to Saul, laid his hands on him, and healed him. Saul could see now. Eventually, Saul changed his name to Paul. He stopped sinning and persecuting Christians. Instead, he began to preach and teach about Jesus all over the world.
Now, how could someone like Saul have such a radical change? How could Saul go from killing Christians to eventually becoming a preacher who helped others become Christians?
That's the power of God's love. Today, kids, we are going to learn how the power of God's love can do the same thing for us. If God can forgive Saul and change his life in such an amazing way, there is no doubt he can do the same thing for you and for me. Have you ever heard of any sounds like this? Okay, do you know what each of those sounds are?
Some of those sounds are really loud and obnoxious. Like, after listening to them over and over again, they can get really annoying.
But why do these sounds exist? They exist in order to get your attention. When someone wants to know that there is a tornado or a hurricane in the area, they blow the tornado hurricane siren. You can hear a fire truck when they need to get by, or when it's time for school. Those are all used to get your attention. Number one, God will do whatever it takes to get your attention. God does not want you to sin, but when we do mess up and sin, He will do whatever it takes to get our attention. Does that mean God is going to send a blinding light and speak to us in a loud, booming voice? Probably not. But God will get your attention in other ways. So you might ask, now why would God want to get Saul's attention? Why didn't He just kill Saul or get rid of him on the road? After all, Saul was a really bad guy. He was going around killing Christians. Doesn't he deserve that? Well, we can learn a very important lesson from the fact that God didn't kill Saul, but instead chose to get his attention. Number two, no one is beyond God's love. An important thing to remember is that every soul matters to God. Every soul. Every person in the world.
That includes your entire family, everyone in your school, everyone in this country, every person in the world.
Sometimes when you've messed up and sinned, you think that God doesn't love you anymore. But He does. If you've cheated on a test, God still loves you. If you've lied to your parents, God still loves you. No matter what you do, God will always love you. Maybe you have no problem believing that God loves everyone, but you just don't believe that God can use everyone. Number three, God can erase your past and change your future. Saul, the guy who had preached against Jesus and even killed other Christians, became known as Paul. Paul went to lead thousands of people to know God. Paul even wrote most of the New Testament. That goes to show you that God can use anyone to do His work, even the worst of sinners. Now, what about you? 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 says, anyone who belongs to Christ is a new person. The old life has gone, the new life has begun. He can use you to do big things for Him. Isn't that amazing to know how great God's love is for us? All right, kids, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you guys next week.